So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time. Now, needless to say this, you have to revise this lecture just after watching it. Because if you don't, if you just watch this lecture, well, these current affairs which we will discuss will quickly skip your memory. You have to retain them at least till your exams. So solidify these current affairs in your memory by revising it just after you watch the lecture. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram platform. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. Okay? Alright then, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into the lecture. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So let's begin. So daily current affairs, 5th of December, that is Friday, and here is the topics list. We all know that Russian President Vladimir Putin is in India and there is a lot of fanfare around this event. So we will talk about India-Russia Annual Summit. Certain key details you need to know about the bilateral relationship between India and Russia. Okay? Because an MCQ or a mains type question can be asked. So we will discuss this annual summit. Then we will talk about DHRUVA system. This DHRUVA system is a UPI-like system for addresses, and this system is released by Department of Posts, Postal Department. So what is this DHRUVA system, this UPI-like address system? We'll talk about this. Then, well, we'll talk about critically endangered vultures because they were recently released into the wild in Assam. Okay, so we'll talk about the threats faced by vultures in India. And in the end, we'll talk about a historical event called Mahad Satyagraha. Okay, this was carried out by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and 6th of December is the death anniversary, not birth, death anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So because his death anniversary is there, okay, that is why all the things done by him to uplift or to destroy the caste hierarchy in India, all those things are part of public discourse. So we will talk about this historic event, Mahad Satyagraha, led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, okay. So topic number 1 is related to your international relations portion of UPSC syllabus. Topic number 2 is related to science and technology and policy and governance portion of your UPSC syllabus. Topic number 3 is related to environment portion of UPSC syllabus, and topic number 4 is clear-cut related to modern history portion of UPSC syllabus. So these are the 4 news items that we shall discuss. Let's quickly discuss them one by one. Let's start with topic number 1, and that is India-Russia Annual Summit. Now, we all know this, that the special relationship between India and Russia is actually quite special. And you can witness this or notice this by the amount of fanfare that is surrounding this visit of President Vladimir Putin in India. Okay, everyone is talking about it. It has geopolitical ramifications. It has ramifications for India's relationship with Western countries. There is a lot of things that we need to know about this special relationship. Okay. Now, the thing is that President Vladimir Putin came to India for the annual summit that is held between India and Russia. Sometimes that annual summit is in Russia, sometimes the annual summit is in India. Okay. This time around, this bilateral summit is in India, and that is why Russian president is here. Right? But that is not the focus of our discussion. The focus of our discussion is what are the key pillars on which this special and strategic relationship between these two countries rests. Okay, we need to understand the key pillars where these two countries cooperate and the key pillars where these two countries basically find each other indispensable. We need each other. So what are the areas of cooperation? What are the institutional mechanisms through which we cooperate, right? For example, annual summit is an institutional mechanism. Okay, it's an institutional mechanism through which both of us cooperate. Similarly, there are other institutional mechanisms as well. Okay, for different things, different aspects to this special relationship. Therefore, we will discuss all those institutional mechanisms. We will discuss those pillars and the significance of this visit. Okay, so let's talk about this entire thing in totality. So let's begin. So India-Russia Annual Summit. So what was in the news? We all know what was in the news. Russian President Vladimir Putin is on a state visit to India for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. Now, this India-Russia Annual Summit is also an institutional mechanism. It is held every year, hence the name annual, and it is held alternatively. Sometimes in Russia, then PM Modi goes, sometimes in India, then Vladimir Putin comes. But we never forget to hold this summit. Okay, every year. So this is a good institutional mechanism of cooperation. In New Delhi, where he received a ceremonial welcome at Rashtrapati Bhavan and held talks with Prime Minister Modi. And his itinerary is also very long, okay? There are a lot of agreements, deals that are being made for this visit. Nonetheless, we'll talk about those deals or these agreements between India and Russia when the details about those deals would come out in public. Right now, let's focus on the pillars on which this special relationship lies. Okay? So, strong institutional backing, basically the institutions that support this cooperation. Now, India-Russia relationship is basically categorized as special and privileged strategic partnership. Both these countries back in 2010 signed this agreement in which they called each other special and privileged strategic partners. Okay. Earlier in 2000, well, the relationship was categorized as strategic partnership, but then it was elevated from strategic partnership to special and privileged strategic partnership, which means that India has many strategic partners, but Russia is a special strategic partner. You understand the difference, okay? Then, what are the institutional mechanisms? We hold annual summits, we have talked about this. Then there is 2+2 dialogue, okay? 2+2 dialogue, well, defense minister and foreign minister or external affairs minister from India and defense minister and foreign minister from Russia. They both hold summits. This is known as 2+2. 2 ministers from India, 2 ministers from Russia. Okay. Then NSA level, National Security Advisor of India, Ajit Doval, and National Security Advisor of Russia. They hold talks for security cooperation. Then parliamentary exchanges, MPs from India, MPs from Russian parliament, they meet. And sectoral working groups. What do you mean by sectoral working group? There is a working group for economics, there is a working group for trade, there is a working group for culture. So there are multiple institutions, okay? But specifically for trade and economics, there is a special group. India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission for Trade, Economic, Scientific and Cultural Cooperation. This is a very important institution. Remember its name, IRIGCTEC. Okay, very important. A lot of deals are made through this commission. Okay. This creates high trust, defense dependence, and political convergence on multipolarity. Basically, because we cooperate with each other through multiple institutions, that is why there is no trust deficit. There is high trust, defense cooperation, plus our views are similar when it comes to international relations. Our views are similar with respect to reforms in United Nations, reforms in BRICS, okay, and many other areas, because we hold regular talks. Clear? Now, what are those pillars that we talked about? We have talked about the institutions where these two countries cooperate. Now let's talk about the pillars. So areas. First of all, defense cooperation. We all know that we buy Russian weaponry. Okay. MiG series of fighter jets were from Russia. Okay. Sukhoi is from Russia. And many other, well, the nuclear submarine is from Russia. There are many defense equipment. In fact, some people say we are over dependent on Russian weaponry. But that has been a historical thing. So this is there. Then trade between two countries. It is between the bilateral trade between India and Russia is roughly 60 to 70 billion dollars, but both of them want this trade to go to $100 billion. Plus mutual investments. Indian companies are investing in Russia, Russian companies are investing in India, and connectivity. We want to create corridors. For example, there is this corridor called International North-South Trade Corridor that goes from Russia, then Central Asian countries, then Iran, Chabahar port in Iran, and then to India. This will be very useful for India. Plus, then there is Chennai, Vladivostok, the easternmost city in Russia. Chennai, Vladivostok corridor and multiple transit corridors where we can trade. Okay. Then energy and natural resources. We all know that the reason why Donald Trump is putting sanctions on us is because we never stopped buying Russian oil, Russian natural gas, and many other natural resources. So trade over here is robust. Then, well, educational cooperation, university level cooperation, cultural cooperation, people-to-people contact. And Russia has been helping ISRO historically when it comes to space and other areas of science and technology. And now our ISRO has become so big that now ISRO helps Roscosmos, Russian space agency. Okay, so well, the relationship is very special. All right. Now, Both countries support a multipolar world. So currently the world is unipolar, right? That means, well, now it has become bipolar. One pole is America, the other pole is Russia, China. But both countries support multipolarity. Okay, no one country should be extremely dominant. They want reforms in United Nations Security Council. Russia supports India's permanent membership in Security Council. Then BRICS is there, where two countries cooperate. Both are members of BRICS. Both are members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, G20 and UN. So there is multilateral cooperation as well. Okay, but going ahead, there are a lot of challenges also. It is very difficult for both countries to cooperate. Why? What are the roadblocks? Well, the challenges are, first of all, Ukraine war and Western geopolitical pressure, Donald Trump's pressure. Well, stops us or makes it painful for us to cooperate with Russia, because Donald Trump is penalizing us for cooperating with Russia. Even European countries do that. They criticize India. So this Ukraine war and geopolitical pressures, well, makes it difficult to cooperate properly. Plus, a lot of sanctions on Russia makes trade also difficult. Because Russia is facing economic sanctions, it is very difficult for Indian companies to make payments to Russia in US dollars. Okay, because of those sanctions. So we have to find alternative mechanisms. So this adds an extra cost. So this is a problem. Okay, Western competition and payment challenges. Western competition also. Earlier, before 1991, we were heavily reliant on Russia or Soviet Union for science and technology. And this reliance continued, that inertia continued. But the problem is, we want to diversify. We want to diversify from Russia. Okay, we do not want to be over-reliant on Russia. So Western competition is there. So this is bad news for Russia, but we have to do it. Okay, over-reliance on Russian weapons. Now India wants to diversify. We want to buy Rafale from France. We want to buy many other missiles from USA. So this is there, which Russia might not be happy with. And you remember we talked about connectivity projects like INSTC, Chennai-Vladivostok corridor. Well, there is slow progress on these connectivity projects. So these are some of the roadblocks. They are clearly mentioned, clearly explained in your notes. So do read your notes. Okay. All right then. Let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is DHRUVA system. Now, you all know about UPI for payments. You all know Google Pay, Phone Pay, Bharat Pay, Paytm, right? They have revolutionized payments. Now, to transfer money to someone's bank account, you do not need to know their bank account. You just need to know their UPI ID, which is given in the QR code, or you just need to know their mobile number. How was that possible? Well, basically, National Payments Corporation of India created a database, okay, in which bank accounts of every person is given. They match those bank accounts with a UPI ID given to every person and attached to their mobile number. So now if you will send money to someone's mobile number, because it is attached to the bank account, the money would get transferred to that bank account. This entire system is known as Unified Payment Interface. This made payments really easy. We all know how UPI made it easy to transfer money from one bank account to another, right? Now, similarly, we have a problem when it comes to giving addresses. Okay, whenever you have to fill a form or whenever you have to basically order something to your home, you have to give a detailed address. Like whenever you wanted to receive payment, you had to give your account information, IFSC code. Yes. Now, Department of Post is saying, let's create UPI ID like virtual addresses. Okay, those virtual addresses would be linked with your actual address. So if you want to order something, or if you want to send something to someone's home, you need to know their virtual ID only. That would be matched with their physical address and the package would be sent. This can be used everywhere, in Amazon, in Flipkart, in government postal departments, everywhere. Wherever you have to give your address, instead of giving your full address, you can give this virtual ID. Now, this entire project is known as DHRUV, which is being spearheaded by Department of Post, and Department of Post, to make it possible, has to amend Indian Postal Act. Okay, so basically Department of Post has proposed an amendment so that the law is amended, and that allows for creation of this DHRUV system, which will make virtual addresses and service delivery, home service delivery, relatively easier. Just like UPI brought revolution in payments, this will bring its own revolution. Okay, so let's talk about DHRUVA system. So yeah, DHRUVA system. So what was in the news? So Department of Post this week released a draft amendment to the Post Office Act aimed at introducing an interoperable, standardized and user-centric addressing system called Digital Hub for Reference and Unique Virtual Address. Like UPI or UPI ID, there is a unique virtual address called DHRUVA. The framework has been under consultation for a few months with one key element. Okay, for DHRUVA to work, you need a digipin also of your location. Now, digipin project has been successfully implemented. So because digipin project has been successfully implemented, now you can build upon digipin. You understand? Using these digipins, you can create virtual IDs. Now, what is digipin? I'll explain what is digipin. Okay. First, let's talk about DHRUVA. So this initiative uses UPI-like labels to standardize and digitize physical addresses across the country. Now, it is built upon digipin. Now, what is a digipin? Basically, the thing is that, well, through satellite surveillance, we have created a grid. Okay, latitudes and longitudes. Okay, so these are latitudes, these are longitudes, and we have created this box. Okay, this is a grid. Okay, now every box has a pin, unique pin. Okay, which is unique. So every box is identified through a pin, and every box's size is 4 by 4 meter. So it's very close. Okay, a house can come in this box. Yes, so there is digipin. Now you will match digipin with this ID, and this ID will be matched with your physical address. So digipin was essential for DHRUVA to be operational. Digipin is already done. Okay, using satellite imagery. So this makes addresses easy to share because you don't have to share your actual address. You just have to share your virtual ID. Okay, and reducing manual entry. The virtual ID would be small or maybe a QR code. So instead of sharing your entire address, you just have to type your virtual ID on Flipkart or Amazon. That's it. And this will also enable e-commerce, logistics also, transportation of goods and services, and government services also. Government brings certain items to your home. This would be great. Plus, this system is open source, so any third-party app can use it. So how will this system work? Okay. So how will it work? First of all, we will create a separate company under Section 8 of Companies Act. Section 8, companies established under Section 8 of Companies Act are a not-for-profit company, are not-for-profit companies. For example, National Payment Corporation of India, which handles UPI, is one such company. So like UPI is handled by NPCI, similarly, you will create a separate body, which will be a not-for-profit body registered under Section 8 of Companies Act, which will manage DHRUVA system. Okay, then there will be address information agents, which will keep this data and whose job would be to match this data with your virtual ID and your actual address. Okay, and this entire technology will be indigenous, created by India. No foreign technology would be taken, completely Atmanirbhar. Okay, so this would be really beneficial. So what are the benefits? Well, it standardizes address across sectors, benefiting logistics, e-commerce, service delivery. We will create a digital public infrastructure. So like we have UPI, similarly, we'll have DHRUVA and digipin. That is a digital public infrastructure, and India is taking a lead in digital public infrastructure. All the countries of the world, including developed countries, well, they laud India, they applaud India for developing or taking a lead in digital public infrastructure. UPI is the biggest evidence. Okay, everyone applauds UPI. Even USA does not have a UPI-like thing. Okay, logistics system would be efficient, and we are using tech to make government service delivery easy. So this is the benefit. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to third news item, which is also important, environment related, and that is critically endangered vultures. Now you see, in India, since the 1990s, well, vulture population has significantly declined. Vulture population. And because of that, many vulture species of India have become critically endangered. So much so that they were almost extinct from the wild. Now, Bombay Natural History Society basically took this task of conserving these vulture species. So what they did was, they took them from the wild They took them to their zoos and bred them. This is known as captive breeding. Breeding not in the wild, but in your own establishment, in your zoos. And once they created sufficient or bred sufficient numbers of these vultures, then recently they released them into the wild in Assam. Okay, this was in the news. But we need to know why vulture populations declined significantly, or basically we need to know what are the threats faced by vulture populations. Okay, so let's quickly talk about this. So critically endangered vultures. So in the news, BNHS plans to release 6 critically endangered vultures. So 3 would be slender-billed vultures and 3 would be white-rumped vultures in Assam's Kamrup Biswanath districts following 15 years of captive breeding efforts. Okay, so these are the vultures that would be released. Now, vultures were facing a conservation crisis. What sort of conservation crisis? Well, there was a sharp population decline. Why? You know, there is a particular category of medicines called NSAIDs, like diclofenac, acetylphenidate. These medicines are painkillers of sorts, okay, NSAIDs. Now, generally, animal rearing people or who are involved in cattle rearing or other forms of goat rearing, sheep rearing, sometimes when their animals are in pain, they give diclofenac to them. When these animals die, a significant amount of diclofenac is in their system. Now, as you all know, when animals die, they are fed. I mean, who eats them? Eagles and vultures eat them. Now, vultures ate these diclofenac-studded animals. Now, diclofenac is really harmful for vultures. Many vultures got kidney failure. They fed on these carcasses of dead animals. They had diclofenac. That led to kidney failure and many vultures declined. This was a big issue. Then there are other threats as well. Pesticide poisoning. Okay, so to kill stray dogs, what do people do? They poison cattle, dead cattle. Stray dogs feed on them and stray dogs die. Now sometimes vultures also feed on them. They also die. Then sometimes they get electrocuted by power wires, habitat loss, food scarcity. So all this happened. Okay, because of which since 1990s, vulture population significantly declined. Okay, significantly. So much so that Bombay Natural History Society had to take over 800 vultures since 2004 and captively breed them. So since 2004, they have been captively breeding them so that they can artificially increase their numbers and then release them into the wild. Now, these 800 species were bred in 4 Jatayu centers. For bird conservation, government has opened Jatayu centers. The name Jatayu comes from a mythological character from Ramayana. Okay, Haryana, MP, West Bengal, Assam, with support from Environment Ministry and Royal Society for Protection of Birds. Okay, so all of this was going on. Now, sufficient numbers were produced as far as these birds are concerned. Now, what was their release strategy? They have been released in wild in Assam. What is the release strategy? Well, there is a thing called soft release. First, you bring these birds to Assam. Before releasing them, you acclimatize them to the environment, weather, and then slowly release them. Soft release. Plus, so that these vultures do not face the similar problem of diclofenac or poisoning of cattle carcasses, you generate public awareness also. Okay, and there is governmental support as well. Government basically goes door to door and buys back the diclofenac or poison that are used by these livestock rearers to basically go on with their business. So government also supports these activities. This was the strategy. Now, why are vultures important? You need to know this, okay? Why do we need to save vultures? Well, vultures act as nature's cleanup crew. When the animals die, vultures eat them up so that they do not rot in those places and create. And when an animal dies and rots, well, bacterial growth happens. Those bacteria could be disease causing. Diseases also spread. So they act as nature's cleanup crew, consuming infected carcasses to break pathogen chains and reduce pollution. Plus, they have cultural significance as well. You know, Parsis, how do they dispose of their dead? Well, Hindus, Sikhs, well, they burn their dead. Muslims and Christians, they bury their dead. Parsis basically have towers of silence. On the top of those towers, they lay their dead over there, and vultures feed on these people, dead people. That's their ritual. So that was also harmed because now there were no vultures. Okay, their decline disrupted food chain because vultures lie at the end of the food chain. Restoration supports biodiversity and public health also. because now these animals rot in the open, spreading diseases. Okay, and now let's move on to the last news item, and that is Mahad Satyagraha. So what is Mahad Satyagraha? Basically, 6th of December is the death anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now, many of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's followers and many political leaders paid tribute to this tall leader. While paying tribute, some people also talked about his contributions. Okay, one such contribution that was his and his alone was Mahad Satyagraha. You see, he led this satyagraha between 1927 to 1937. And the purpose of this satyagraha was upliftment of Dalits. Because back in Maharashtra, Dalit communities were not allowed to drink water from public water bodies or use public spaces. So he took his community members, okay, went to a public tank and drank water with them, defying societal norms through a proper non-violent way, and that is why it is known as Satyagraha, done by Mahad community. So Mahad Satyagraha, basically in Mahad. Okay, that is why it is known as Mahad Satyagraha. So basically, this Satyagraha was not against the colonial rule, as was the case with Gandhiji. Okay, this was a Satyagraha against caste oppression. And because of this, well, India became aware of caste atrocities, and that is why our constitution made it very clear in fundamental rights chapter that untouchability is strictly prohibited as per article 17, and you cannot discriminate against a particular section of society. You cannot refuse access to public resources. Okay, article 15, basically the entire chapter on right to equality. It is because of the contributions of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar that that particular section in fundamental rights is there. Okay, so we will talk about this particular very significant historical event called Mahad Satyagraha. So let's talk about this. Okay, so Mahad Satyagraha. So followers of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar gathered at Chaitya Bhumi to pay him homage on his death anniversary at Shivaji Park, Dadar, December 6th. This has brought the historical event of Mahad Satyagraha into political discourse of India. Okay, this is the image for Mahad Satyagraha, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar leading all his community members. Okay, so what was this Satyagraha? So Mahad Satyagraha, so there were a series of Satyagrahas led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar challenged caste-based denial of water access at Chavdar tank in Mahad, Maharashtra for 10 years basically. Okay, on March 20th, 1927, Ambedkar led 2,500 Dalits to publicly drink from the tank, asserting legal rights under Bombay government. Because he used constitutional method, because as per the ruling of Bombay government, that particular tank, Chavdar tank, became a public property. Now, if it is a public property, then everyone has the right to drink from it. It is not private property. If it was private property, then that person who owns this property can restrict it. But it was a public property. So he said, we also have the right. So he drank water from there. Then what happened? The upper caste members basically did purification rituals. They purified this entire space. That angered Dr. B.R. Ambedkar again. And he led this Mahad Satyagraha 1.0 in March. He led a second Satyagraha in that December, where he publicly burnt Manusmriti, which he called the source of all caste hierarchy in India. Okay, so upper caste performed purification rituals, prompting a second Satyagraha where Ambedkar burned the Manusmriti, rejecting scriptural sanction for caste hierarchy, rejecting the scripture which gives caste hierarchy. And they fought a lot of legal battles as well, and they finally achieved legal victory. Bombay government ordered that you cannot stop Dalit community from drinking water from this space. So this was the final conclusion of this Satyagraha. Okay. Now, key events and strategy. Like I said, Mahad 1.0 was in March, then Mahad 2.0 December, and a series of battles were led in courts. Okay, so it was a non-violent public protest as well as court protest also. The battle was fought in court as well. What is its constitutional significance? Mahad prefigured Article 14 to 17, right to equality, untouchability, Article 17, Article 21, life with dignity, right to life with dignity. Okay, so all these rights which are in our constitution have an historical context as well. Okay, Mahad Satyagraha is part of that historical context. So this is there. This Satyagraha was important in establishing constitutional morality in it. Okay, and that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But It will add more value if you are number one, consistent and regular with this lecture series, and number two, like I said before, revise this lecture from the notes provided by us on our Telegram channel. So in the hope that you are going to do that, I shall take your leave and will promise you to see you next time with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.